Standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, there's the addendum to accept the resignation submitted by Board Chairman Mark Jesperson effective October 8, 2021.
And subsequent motions to follow. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with any addenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. So we will move to item number 4 then is 4A, accept the resignation submitted by Board Chairman Mark Jesperson effective October 8, 2021. It's recommended to accept the resignation as presented. I believe it's attached to your addendum this evening. We have a motion to accept the resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? So just from my perspective, I just would like to thank Trustee Jesperson for his time and dedicated service to the Goshen County School District and the students that we serve. And we wish him the very best as he's made this decision that's best for he and his family at this time. So, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Item B then is we need a motion to appoint Superintendent Kramer as Chairman Pro Tem for the reorganization of leadership of the board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I will now take nominations for Board Chairman.
I nominate Zach Miller.
Thank you, Trustee Sussex. Trustee Miller, do you consent to that nomination?
I do.
Thank you. Trustee Miller has been nominated to serve as Goshen County Board Chair. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Trustee Sussex.
Trustee Sussex, do you consent to this nomination?
I do not. I do not have time. I'm sorry.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are now closed. May I have a second motion to nominate Trustee Miller as the new Board Chair?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Patrick. Any discussion? All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'll turn this back over to you.
Thank you. So with that, my appointment to chair, we will need also to appoint then a vice chair for the Goshen County School District Board of Trustees. do I have a nomination to fulfill vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Matt Sussex, trustee Sussex.
It's been nominated, trustee Sussex, to accept that nomination.
I do.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, is there a second on the motion to appoint trustee Sussex as vice chair?
I'll second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much for your service. With that, we will move into our information proposals this evening. As we start, I just want to recognize Torrington High School. Their artwork in the gallery this evening is provided by the students at THS. And so please take a moment to appreciate that as you're in the room this evening. With that, we will go to introduction of 2021 new certified staff by district administrators.
We start with Torrington High School. That's all right.
Excellent.
All right, I'm actually going to introduce the person who's going to introduce the remaining, as Mr. Christensen was unable to attend. New staff member, Gabe Bartlett. Mr. Bartlett took over this year as Dean of Students and Athletic Director. He comes to THS with a wealth of experience working with students and has been busy building relationships at THS. So thank you, Mr. Bartlett, for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you at the mic to introduce the remaining staff new to Torrington High School.
All right, this is THS new staff for 2021. First is Luke Audette. Mr. Audette is a math teacher at Torrington High School. Most recently, he taught at Western Wyoming Community College. Previously, he taught high school math in Minnesota. Mr. Audette is qualified to teach concurrent enrollment courses through EWC and allows us to continue to offer college math classes at THS. Luke Audette. Patricia Bamer. Miss Bamer has switched roles this year, moving from being a reliable sub to our academic interventionist. She has jumped into the role, offering a reading intervention class and working to assist students as the need arises. Patricia Bamer. Elias Chavez. Mr. Chavez is a first-year teacher. He student taught at LFL and was a long-term substitute at TMS last spring. Right after being hired, he attended a week-long training in Jackson to better prepare himself to teach government. Elias is a Torrington native and excited to be teaching at home. Elias Chavez. Mary Chilson. Miss Chilson has been a para at Lincoln for the past few years. She made the transition to being a special education teacher this year. She is an energetic and positive addition to the building. Mary Chilson. John Klein. Mr. Klein joins THS this year after a long stint at EWC teaching art. As you can see around the room, his influence has already been evident. He has brought a level of professionalism to the art classroom and students are benefiting. John Klein. Cody Grant. Mr. Grant took a position late in the summer as a special education teacher due to some late shifts in district staffing. Previously, Cody worked at the prison. Mr. Grant is also a THS graduate, along with his role as head wrestling coach. Mr. Grant hopes to engender a positive school culture and spirit. Baxter Heinert. Ms. Heinert is taking over the certificate track program at Torrington High School. She previously taught at elementary level in Douglas and was also the head swim coach. Like other new teachers, the energy and enthusiasm she brings to the job are positively influencing the THS culture. Baxter Heinert. And lastly, Christopher Mathis. Mr. Mathis is leading the auto program at THS. He's had a long career in the industry. Mr. Mathis is working on proper certifications to allow us to continue to offer dual enrollment courses with LCCC for our auto program. He is quickly learning the ropes of having a classroom full of students. Those are our new THS staff for 2021. Thank you, Board.
Now we'll go to Mr. Heyman and TMS. I know he has parent-teacher conferences tonight, so I'll let him go next so he's able to return to that.
Good evening. It's my privilege to introduce new staff at Torrington Middle School. First is Cheyenne Broadway. Cheyenne is a physical education teacher by trade, and she's working as a behavior interventionist at Torrington Middle School. Jessica Martin is new to our school, previously taught in Baird and Morrill. She's a counselor at Torrington Middle School. Tessa Walker, there's Tessa back there. Tessa previously taught in Alliance. This year, we're privileged to have her as our 7th grade language arts teacher. Tony Scusa, yeah, there's Tony, okay. Tony was in the district previously. We're thrilled to have her back. She is teaching 7th grade math. The last few years, she's been in Grand Island, Nebraska. It's great to have her back aboard. We have 2 teachers that are new to the middle school, but not new to the district, but I want to mention them. Stacy Baker, previously taught at Torrington High School, now Torrington Middle School as a language arts teacher in grade 8. And Jake Martin, previously taught at Torrington High School, is new as our social studies teacher in grade 8. So we're very pleased to have those new people at Torrington Middle School. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Mr. Epler and Southeast Schools.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm proud to make introduction of 2 staff members that were added to the Southeast Schools staffing for this school year. I'd like to introduce first Mr. Cody Powell. Cody's not a stranger. He's a graduate of Lincoln Fort Laramie High School, where he excelled in FBLA, student council, and was a 3-sport athlete in our Goshen County school system. Also earned academic honors at Eastern Wyoming College and Chadron State College before completing his internship at Trail Elementary at 2 different grade levels. We're excited to add Cody to our staff. We're getting the dogger washed off of him and happy to have him as a site team. Second introduction I'd like to make, Jessica Hooper was not able to attend tonight. Mrs. Hooper moved here with her family from Star Valley High School. She's a 17-year teacher veteran who has an in-depth knowledge and understanding of the PLC process, common assessment system, and curriculum alignment. And she's in our junior high school language arts program. We're welcome to have Jessica and her family as part of the Cyclone community as well.
Now we'll give Mr. Gilchrist an opportunity to see if he can one-up Mr. Epler. He is joining us via Zoom.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Mr. Gilchrist.
Well, new teachers, I managed to steal all mine from current staff in Goshen County. Shannon Baldwin comes to us from Trail and Lincoln in art. Neil Baker comes to us as well from Torrington at THS. And let's see, I'm trying to pick my brain on the other ones. I apologize. Forgot who my other one was. I got one more. I'll have to think of that one. I'll get it to you guys.
If you think of it and you can raise your hand, I'll watch the Zoom and
You
have
watch the Zoom and you'll catch that one. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and then we'll have Mr. Florshinger and any Trail Elementary new staff.
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. We have 2 new staff members this year to Trail Elementary. First staff member is Shelly Kachera. She's come to us. She was a para for us for about 5 years. Prior to that, she did a lot of work in Colorado with second language, English language learners. So we're proud to have her as a 5th grade teacher, and she's doing a tremendous job. And she was unable to attend tonight due to some previous arrangements. Our second new teacher we have is Holly Walter, and I think she might be there tonight. Maybe.
Yep, she's there. She's waving.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. She comes to us new this year as one of our academic interventionists. Her previous experience has been and moral as an interventionist, and then she was previously a Goshen County employee. And we are super excited to have her. She's doing an absolutely tremendous job with our interventionists as part of our team, and our kids are making some good growth, and we're sure happy to have both of those staff members. So thank you.
Trail staff. I think we had one other one on Trail Elementary too, and this is kind of a change, and he kind of stolen away from Lincoln, was Lance Pesh as physical education teacher too. So.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the Zoom guys are not batting 100% tonight, so I did apologize. Yes, Mr. Petch comes to us from Lincoln as our PE teacher. We're super excited to have him.
Thank you, Mr. Fortune. And last but not certainly not least, Lincoln Elementary and Mrs. Sims.
All right, so my friends came, and so I'm going to have them come up here so that everybody can see them. And I know they're going, oh man, of course you would. So I'm going to start out with Sherry Schultz. Sherry Schultz comes to us with 27 years of experience from TLC. She taught 3 years at Morrill. She is a Morrill graduate, so she's just across the border. She's been married for 37 years, has 2 daughters and 8 grandchildren, and that's what she enjoys most, is being able to spend time with her family in those things. Next, I'd like to introduce Jenna Anderson. Jenna graduated from the University of Wyoming in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in elementary ed with a minor in literacy. She recently moved to Torrington from Douglas, where she taught 2nd grade for the past 4 years. She's very excited to live in Torrington, a community that she feels has a lot to offer. She's currently working towards her master's degree in curriculum and instruction from Western Governors. And she loves the fact that she's a lifelong learner. And next is Kelsey Brothwell and company. Yes, this is one of our future Blazers here. Kelsey graduated from Valley City State University in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in elementary ed. She previously taught 2nd grade in Guernsey and is excited to be teaching 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary. Her goal is to bring new ideas to the classroom and continue to learn every day with her students. In Kelsey's free time, she enjoys being outdoors, hunting, and spending time with her family. She and her husband, Cole, have a son. This is Kane, and are expecting a little girl in February. So we have 2 little Blazers coming. She's excited to be teaching at Lincoln and can't wait to see what opportunities that may be present. Next is Amy Schmidt. Amy graduated from the University of Wyoming in 2015 with a BA in communication and worked as an event coordinator for youth development events. Several years later, she decided to return to school to complete a certificate program in elementary ed from Chadron State College. This is her first year as a teacher. She's enjoying every minute of it. In her spare time, Amy loves to read, travel, bake, knit, and tend to the garden. She married her college sweetheart, and together they have 1 daughter. Amy is so excited to be a member of the Blazer community and loves working with her students every day. Next, we have Olivia Neal. This is Olivia's first year teaching 1st grade, but 2nd year at Lincoln. She's worked as a para for the past 5 years, where she fostered a love for learning and education. She passionately believes all students are capable of learning. Olivia loves getting to know others and creating genuine relationships. She enjoys spending time with her 2 children and her husband, being outdoors and traveling. It is her hope to cultivate an environment where students feel celebrated and successful. Olivia is excited to be part of the Blazer community. And lastly, we have a new art teacher that's going between Lincoln and Trail, and that's Miss Sherry Kelly, who we kind of stole from 3rd grade at Trail. So we're excited for that. I just wanted to bring them up here because this is the new energy at Lincoln Elementary, and they have just done a super duper job. And just watching them with the kids and the love that they bring is just so exciting. And as I said, the energy and their positivity that they have. I have coaches that come in and they couldn't believe that these are 1st year or fairly new teachers. So I want to get my hats off to them and thank them for coming to Lincoln Elementary.
Thank you, Mrs. Sims. And Mr. Gilchrist, I'll call back on him. I did kind of put Mr. Gilchrist on the spot because he only did have transfers, and typically we have not announced just transfers from other buildings, but since everyone else was announcing their transfers. So I do forgive him. He did not have that list offhand. So Mr. Gilchrist, if you would want to give us your last one, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I would love to. I thought my talent recruiting from the other schools in the district absolved me from tonight, so I apologize for my lack of preparation. But Lindy Ellis came out of retirement for us to teach science, one of the toughest positions, especially in the physical science realm, to fill, and she did us a great service coming out of retirement. So Lindy Ellis is my third teacher. I apologize for that.
Mr. Gilchrist.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda this evening are reports from the student representatives to the board. Mr. Jesperson had reached out to them. I believe 2 were not able to attend, and I think 1 might be on Zoom. Who's on Zoom? Ms. Stokes. Ms. Stokes, do you have any comments for us this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the presentation by Lincoln Elementary on staggered start kindergarten.
All right, you're gonna get tired of hearing from me.
Sorry, really quick, just before you begin, just in recognition of how full it is in here, the new teachers that were just introduced, if you would like to be excused, feel free. I know that it's kind of standing room only in here, so I just don't want you to feel that you must stay if that's something you prefer to do.
I thank the board and Mr. Kramer for asking for a kind of a update on our staggered start, since it's something new for our school. And for those that may not know the background behind it, my kindergarten team, which I would like to introduce to you right now, Priscilla Bartel, Paige Vignos, Taryn Hendricks, and Rachel Gurney. And I don't know if you guys want to come up here in case there's questions, or if you just want to stand up and. But they're the experts as far as my kindergarten crew. They came to me and said, you know, we don't know our kids when they come. With the pandemic, you know, that it's more and more just kind of, they haven't had all the schooling that we've had as previous. And we'd like to try something new. We'd like to try something that's not new. It's new for us, but it's not new around the country. It's a staggered start where kindergartners get a soft start so that we get a chance to get to really know them and ease them into the program as elementary students. So what we did is, we took the first week of school and we had a fourth of the students come on Tuesday, a fourth on Wednesday, a fourth on Thursday, a fourth on Friday. At that time, all kindergarten teachers and special ed and some of our paras were flooded in. At that time, the students were engaged in a variety of activities so that we could see what they could do as far as their letter naming, their fine motor, their gross motor, all those things that we would be testing in the spring when they would come in for screening. This gave us time to really get to know those kiddos because they were with us all day up until about 1:30. And so they went through lunch with us, they went through specials, they went through pretty much the routine of the day. And then after the end of their time, we had the parents come in and we were able to have a short parent meeting, kind of a kindergarten orientation with the parents, give them opportunity to ask questions. The next week, the kids were actually assigned to a classroom. And again, the students came in, a third of the class came on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the whole class came on Friday. So someone might say, oh my gosh, they're missing out on learning. It was amazing. And I must say in the aspect of the whole school, it was amazing to be able to take that time and not only make sure that these kiddos felt comfortable, their anxiety was less, but the calmness of the whole building was incredible. And our special ed teachers and our title teachers reported back, you know what, this gave us time to really concentrate not only on those new kindergartners, but our first and second graders, and get them incorporated back into the setting of this is where they are at. And it wasn't the madness of, oh, let's get through the lunch routine, let's get through dismissal, because those are the two biggies that when you get a bunch of kindergartners that are like new to a school are going, ah! And so there was just a calmness throughout the whole building, and it was amazing the start that it gave everybody. Not just our little people, littlest of all people, but everybody. The teachers met, they got to put together their strengths, some of their challenges. We were looked at kiddos so that we could try and make the classroom pretty even as far as boys and girls, and as far as where maybe some of our struggles were academically or behaviorally. So that we could just even it out and not have one classroom that's full of lots of rambunctious little boys that just want to take you down because that's how they play at home. And I'm gonna give it up to you guys to see if there's anything you want to add to that.
All I can say, just from my own personal experience, it was the most calm and purposeful first weeks of school that I've ever had teaching kindergarten. It didn't feel like I was herding cats and just trying to keep my head above water. It was a slower transition. The first day that we had all of our students present, it was really fun to watch because our students already had a routine and a process down, and they kind of knew what to expect. Some kids come in and they haven't had much of a school experience, and so they're scared. They struggle to say goodbye to mom and dad. It's very overwhelming when you walk into a classroom of 18 other boys and girls, and it's loud and it's overwhelming. So for even those types of students, it was less intimidating for them. It made them feel more comfortable and safe than some of them do if we start just right off the bat with all of our students. So for me personally, it was a very positive experience. I don't know if there's anything else.
It was absolutely amazing. And I think to reach every kid, it was something that really let us sit down and just prioritize every kid and what they need.
From a special ed standpoint, we have to do transition meetings with parents when they transition their child from the preschool to the elementary within the district. And so it was really nice for me because I was able to schedule all those meetings on the day that their student came. So it was easier for parents too, because they came in for their parent meeting. I had my quick meeting with them and we were able to go through that process without having to schedule another meeting for them to come in at another time. So it just made the whole process kind of a lot easier. And it's a quick conversation that we just have to have about the different boxes we have to check and that kind of stuff. And so I think it was nice for parents to be able to do all that at the same time and also ask any questions that they might have after the process of start.
So I gave you a list of what we felt were the positive effects, but there were some challenges that we need to continue to work through. With this being new, the parent communication, making sure that we had popsicles on the playground. We did that through flyers because it was kind of let's get this out there. So we didn't get as many as we were hoping to, but we got quite a few parents to come in and learn more about what we were planning on doing. Being able to put more flyers, emails, and letters out there, but then also just reminding parents that we have early registration for kindergartners so that we can make decisions, we can get things started before the end of the school year, and then they do register again at the beginning of the year. And so just getting that word out to our parents. Students, some of them were a little, I want to know who my teacher is now, as soon as they walk in the door, so that was something we had to work through with them. And I know that there were a few parents that, just really verbalized the fact that this is really a hardship for me because I don't have daycare. So what can we do with that? And we did have some things in the works, but because of lack of staffing, we weren't able to follow through with that the way we had hoped and wanted to. The other thing I wanted to add on there is that our TK kiddos, that's our transitional kindergarten kids. So these are kiddos who are late summer birthdays. So they just barely make the cutoff to the kindergarten age for the state of Wyoming. So usually we look at June, July, and August birthdays. And last year, our cutoff date was in September. So we had 4-year-olds that came to kindergarten, that started out in kindergarten and turned 5 in September. And that has been happening for quite a while. Those students usually are a step behind already because of maturity, because they haven't had as much schooling as some of our other kiddos. And they just struggle. And if they struggle at the beginning, they're going to struggle, continue that struggle, and that gap is only going to get bigger for them. So we started our transitional kindergarten. And on the back, I wanted to share with you, we do a screening for our kindergartners. And this is kind of indicative of the groups that came in. And this down here, the ones that are starred, they were in our transition kindergarten the year before. So now they're starting out as 6-year-old kindergartners ahead of the game. As leaders, watching them do what they've done and be more confident as learners has been amazing. So I just wanted to share that as well, because I know that's something that's new for us as well as that transition kindergarten program. Any questions?
I do have one.
Yeah.
On the challenges, the student daycare, in the future, if we continue to be short-staffed, or do we have some ideas or some options on how we could alleviate that?
We're hoping so.
Okay.
We're working on some things. It's not only just the staffing, but then also finding that place. And we had some things in place, but it just unfortunately didn't work out for us this year. So yes, we definitely hope to.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you so much for your presentation this evening.
And I just want to put out for these ladies here and the rest of our team, we have a couple of our members who are not here because they did it. I was just kind of yep, I'll support you. I'm going to cheerleader for you. But when it came to figuring out the schedule and making contacts, they were on top of it. And our kids are benefiting it from it now.
Thank you. All right, next is a school presentation by Torrington High School.
And I believe Lindsay Maxey. Lindsay, can you hear us okay? Oh, you messed me up.
Well, good evening, board members. We are the leadership class at Torrington High School. I'm Allison Brummel.
I'm Rory Masterson.
I'm Marissa Morehouse. And we're going to tell you kind of what our leadership class does. So here's just an overview of what we do. We do a program called Sources of Strength at the high school. We are part of the Rotary Interact Club. We teach social emotional learning to our fellow peers. We do a couple community service projects, and we learn how to be leaders in our own school and how to apply it to our community, as well as be leaders.
As our leadership class within the Torrington High School, we started off this year by once a month on Zoom. We go with Banner Health, and they teach us just how to be leaders in our school and throughout our community. Another thing that we did in our class is we read this book, The Energy Bus, and each week we read a chapter, and then at the end of the week we evaluate it as a class and go over like what we learned and how that like applies to becoming a leader. We also this year we attended a youth leadership program at the WNCC, and there was different like activities that we went through and different leaders there to like show us how to become leaders within our school and within our community, and it was a very positive experience. And then lastly, we all go through a QPR training, and that's just for like suicide prevention that the whole class goes through.
Sources of Strength is a universal suicide prevention program. And it's really just helping our students and people within our community know that they have strengths when they're at their lowest or they're struggling. We have a campaign each quarter. For the first quarter was what makes us resilient. And the next quarter, we will do tolerance. And then this campaign focused on healthy activities. So we had a club rush on one of the Fridays. We had games in the gym, sidewalk talk outside, a sit and chat, and then like decorating socks in the library. This is the wheel, and it's like what your sources are. So there's mental health, physical activity, family support, positive friends, and just what your sources of strength are when you're at your lows and at your struggles. And so our activity in September focused on healthy activities, and our one in October will focus on generosity, which is why we were doing our community services and fundraisers during October.
Next is our Interact Club. We joined it at the end of last year, and this year is kind of our first year going on with it. Rory is our Rotary president this year. Aiden Saucedo is the vice president. I am the secretary. We have Mackenzie Cole as director and Ellie Tapia as the treasurer. There are 4 things that Rotary Interact Club kind of believes in: truth, fair, goodwill, and beneficial. So there's questions we ask ourselves: is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will build goodwill and better friendship, and will be beneficial to all concerned. And then Rotary, it's an international membership organization, and so we're part of other people and peers all across the world that want to better their own community and life. We have been given the opportunity to work with a lot of leaders in our community, some of those examples, there's a lot of them, but our local legislators, senators, representatives, things like that. And they help us to learn how to take what we learned in the classroom in our leadership program and take it out into the real world and how to use our leadership skills in that way.
Throughout our high school, we also teach social emotional learning. So each month we go in Flex and we teach like an activity or do worksheets or something to show what we're learning. So this September we focus on resiliency, and then this October we'll be doing tolerance. And these are our 5 core competencies that we focus on putting through our activities and our worksheets. And then these are also the things like self-esteem, self-respect, empathy, all those things that we make sure to put into what we're teaching once a month.
Currently our community services right now, we fundraise by doing a 50-50 raffle at one of our football games. And I will be going to buy art supplies for a school in Berlin, Germany, where one of our foreign exchange students comes from, along with buying like appreciation gifts for our community healthcare workers. We also plan on fundraising again by doing a jean day for a teacher and a hat day for the students. Another one of our community services, we tutor at TMS. So we go in during their structured study hall and just kind of help them with math, social studies, and English, anything that the teachers need us to help them with.
And that is our Thornton High School leadership program. You guys have any questions for us? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Those of you that are on the floor, there are a few chairs here now up front if you prefer. And the last presentation we have this evening is a presentation by Lori Madrid on SEL professional development.
I can give a little more while she's moving up. Lori has joined us twice, and for those of you familiar with Lori, she actually is a former graduate. She is, I've gotten to know her over the last 8 months, a phenomenal person, and provided some great training for our staff in regards to social emotional learning. And every time I sit and listen to the things referencing our students and things, it is reinvigorating, it's exciting, and I appreciate you taking the time also to kind of enlighten our board in regards to some of the learning our staff has gotten to take part in over the couple of days that you've had a chance to stay with us.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Kramer, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and all of you guys over here. So yes, my name is Lori Madrid. It used to be Lori Binns. I'm a 1984 graduate of Torrington High School, and I was Blazer Girl. Now, what was exciting about this year is they used to do class prophecy. I don't know if they still do that, where they predict what each of the students are going to end up doing when they grow up. For our prophecy, I was glommed together with Joe Novak. So many of you will know the Novaks, where it said that Father Joseph Novak and Sister Lori Binns would start an orphanage in Lingle. So yes, neither of us have done that, but I came as close as I could because I started a nonprofit that focuses on providing social emotional learning to kids. And basically the mission of our organization is to help people thrive emotionally when life gets tough. Now, what's really exciting about this is thank you, Mrs. Sims, and thank you to all of these ladies that just left. They are showing it in action. So this kindergarten team, they get it. They understand this is a very unique population of little people that are coming into our building, and they need something special and different. And we as teachers bringing them in, we need something special and different. So let's do something different that allows us to embrace them and bring them in with our minds relaxed and excited to have them here instead of being frantic and herding cats, because there's a lot of herding cats in kindergarten. And also the work that your high school students are doing, mind blown. It's not a very professional term, but that's what I felt as I was listening to them talk. Also interact, for those of you that don't know what it is totally amazing. So anyway, thank you again for explaining a little bit of what I've been doing with your staff. The first time I came out, I talked with everybody about ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences that happen to kids when they are traumatized. And in that same discussion, we talked at length about what trauma does to the brain. The reason it matters is you guys are in the business of the brain and filling it full of knowledge, and trauma gets in the way of kids being able to learn readily. Once you're able to give kids the social emotional skills and support that they need, their brains are going to soak up everything you have to give them. Until then, it's not even that they're being resistant, they just can't do it. Their brains aren't learning ready. So that was last month, although it feels like 1,000 years ago, because time now is fluid in case you haven't noticed it. The other thing that was interesting is as I was preparing here after talking today, I realized I can't make sentences anymore. I was talking today for 6 hours. I really don't have any sentences that make sense, so I apologize if I'm tripping over myself. And when you had the guys on Zoom that couldn't remember who people were, I'm like, I'm feeling you. It's been a long day. It's been a long year or a long year and a half. So anyway, today when I was asked to come back, I wanted to figure out how can we give your staff the most bang for the buck? What's going to fortify them and get them ready for this year? So the topic that we ended up talking about was professional sustainability. A lot of people call it self-care. That's great. But when you think about self-care, it's like, oh, I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm not dissing getting your nails done. That could be great, right? But professional sustainability is really figuring out what can I be doing to fortify myself emotionally so that I can stay in my field for a long, long time. And we all know that turnover for teachers, it's really, really high. And that's nationwide. This is a tough job. It's a really tough job that people are doing. And if you're not a teacher, I don't think we really get it. You guys will understand it because you're on the school board, so you understand. So for a part of my talk with people today, we talked about how are you going to sustain yourself? It's the same idea that when you're on an airplane, they say when the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself, then you can help other people. So today we talked about how they can sustain themselves so they can help the kids with whom they're working. The next thing that we talked about was how they can help their specific kids in their classroom, especially those kids who have experienced trauma. Now, I don't know enough about your community for me to have been able to come in and spoon feed people and say, this is what you're going to do with your specific kids. I feel like that's hubris. What we do in Phoenix works with our kids in inner city Phoenix, but you have different kids. So I talked with them a little bit, primed the pump about these are some ideas of what people do. But I then had them break into sessions where they could talk amongst themselves. They're the experts on their kids, and they had a little bit more information to start looking at ways that they can start helping their kids in their schools. That group of girls that was sitting up here, I don't know if it was all girls, so I apologize if I'm being sexist, not intentional. But that leadership team, what they're doing, that is so important because they're stepping up to their peers. And we all know in high school, the most important people in the room are your peers. Sorry, high school teachers and principals. That's just the way it goes, right? But especially what they're doing, that is going to be so pivotal for the emotional well-being and health of your high school students. Anyway, who knows what the future holds? But what I know about this community and learned in spades today, especially listening to your guys' presentations, you're well on your way with what you're doing with social emotional learning. And I would just say, stay the course, keep paying close attention, do a litmus test and figure out how are my kids doing? How are my staff doing? Also figure out what are ways that we can really, really support our staff. And I had a conversation actually with TMS. They were asking me if I could help create some things where teachers could teach social emotional lessons to their students. I actually said, no. So I'm the only person in America that's saying that right now. I didn't feel like that was the best idea. Instead, I said, we figured out Zoom, right? Thank God the pandemic has taught us you can talk to people using this. I said, instead, why don't you have your experts in the building, your counselors, why don't they teach a 10-minute class from their office or wherever that goes out to every single classroom? So it's one person giving one lesson, everybody hears the exact same thing, and the teachers get to hear it, and they could process it a little bit with the students. But rather than adding another thing on the plate of teachers who are already working so hard for you, it felt to me like this would be a really good resolution. And as I was talking about it, I got goosebumps. So it passed the goosebumps test, which means I think this is going to work. And I spoke with Kelsey a couple of weeks ago. She said they've tried it a couple of times. She's loving it. So the other thing that I love about Wyoming is we do things the way we think they're going to work versus what everybody else is doing. And so I encourage you to keep that kind of thinking going and just figuring out how are we going to treat our kids and our teachers and our community to make sure that everybody gets the best that they need. I don't have any more words to say and my brain's tired, but do you have any questions?
Just thank you for what you're doing. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional individuals that wish to speak during public forum that have not turned in their slip to us this evening? Okay, as we move into public forum, then there is a 5-minute time limit for speaking during public forum. Legal restrictions limit the amount of board comment and interaction during this portion of the meeting. And we have those that have completed their goldenrod forms here, and we will begin with our public forum. The first on our list this evening is Ashley Cushman.
Good evening. We trusted you, but your words mean nothing because your actions have spoke the truth. There have been so many letdowns from Goshen County School District over the last 18 months.
Sorry, I apologize.
Oh.
That was me trying to get you. I apologize. That was my fault. Please.
We have watched as trustees that we voted in with confidence to do the best for our children and our community have betrayed us. You may be thinking about the disgruntled response to the mask mandate, but it goes much further than that. Your constituents have asked for you to address the standards-based grading. It was talked about shortly and then put on the back burner. There are issues involving the safety of students, especially those of the female sex at Torrington High School. This was tossed to the side as well. We are standing by idly waiting for headway to be made on issues that are ultimately affecting the education of our students Yet, there you are making excuse after excuse as to why these issues are left in an internal purgatory. Time is the best reason you can give us. Things takes time, which is limited. Funny thing is that several staff members and board members have made the time to bring up issues that, one, are not issues to be concerned by the board, and two, brought about in an extremely petty and childish manner. If there's a time for these individuals to dwell on such minuscule problems, yet shirk the responsibility for which they were voted into office or paid a wage to do, then there is concern of their true intentions. You have one job: to make the educational experience for our children one that supports them, protects them, and pushes them to become their best selves. But instead, a few small-minded and spiteful individuals feel the need to meddle in matters that they do not pertain. I am failing to understand why these things would be of such concern, and the only conclusion I could come to was to divert the focus of the people in order to keep other, more serious items hidden behind your veil of deceit. To take the limelight away from the fact that we are currently paying full-time wages to two individuals at Lincoln Elementary to be educators without completing requirements set forth by the state of Wyoming. Oddly enough, these two people are immediate family members of two board trustees. When is time going to be taken to address these very real issues and not used to stock social media accounts for ammunition against your fellow board members? When will you stop using my actions to define my husband? I will be here until the bitter end to fight for my children's education and to go to great lengths to defend my husband's honor. So the next time you find the need to insert yourself into the middle of my family and I's personal life, try to do what it is you're actually here to do. And if I am still what is dancing around in your mind, then please, for the sake of our children, find the time to submit your resignation, as you are no longer interested in the real reason behind your current position.
Denise Billinger.
Hi, I'm Denise Billinger, and I'm here on behalf of myself and my husband, Gib Smith. I emailed everybody. Yours came back to me. I tried several times, but I'm going to make this really brief. I just made a few notes. I'm not a public speaker, so I might stumble, so I'll apologize for that right now. I am talking about bullying. I have a child who has been special needs forever. And he's on an IEP, and throughout, he's a ninth grader. So throughout school, he has been bullied, teased, minor things. And he's really good at letting things go. And you're gonna have to give me a minute because anyway, I sent you guys a letter, and I've been doing some research, and I kind of found out that October is National Bullying Prevention Month. And so it's kind of fitting that all of this is happening. And I'm here to ask you guys to review your policy on harassment, hazing, and bullying. At the beginning of the year, all of our kids have to sign papers. As parents, we have to sign the papers with our children. One of them is a bullying policy. To me, if your child signs that and you sign that policy with that child, that means you know the rules. That is your warning. You don't get another warning. So if you're teasing kids, and I get it, there's kids who are teenagers and they just tease each other as friends. But when you have a kid that's a special needs and you have 5 other people doing things that I'm not going to mention because it's not just the normal bullying, you don't give them a warning. They need consequences. And so I want the policy changed to say, we aren't going to tolerate this. It's not okay. if you are caught, this is what's going to happen. First time you come in, we catch you bullying, this is what's going to happen. The problem is most school systems do a suspension. We'll send you home, we'll do an in-school suspension. And the kid gets a vacation. Parents are not made to be accountable for their children. I want you guys to do some research. I want you to think about something. To me, if you're bullying another child, you need to talk to a therapist. You're lacking something in your family, you're needing attention, something is wanted. And you're picking on my child who cannot defend himself. So I think it has to be a mandatory, you see a therapist and your parents pay for it. That will wake up a parent if they have to take money out of their pocket because their child is not being behaved. Plus, you make them leave their work and come in for a meeting. They need to sit down and have a meeting and talk about it. And then, because of COVID, we have this great thing where kids can do schooling on the internet. That child can stay at home with mom and dad and do some schoolwork and go to therapy. And when the therapist says, hey, you can go back because we don't think you're going to pick on kids, you can do that. What happened in this incident was not handled right. One of the children took the video that was taken after was told not to do it because it's not okay and you'll be suspended the next time, and continue to show the video. I have to tell you, it's all I could do, all my husband could do to not throttle somebody. So this is one issue we have. And now this is the next issue. It went around for a long time. Now it's getting to friends of my daughter and my niece who go to the school. They both live with us. These families know my child since he was little. Carrie, you know my son. He went through TLC. People know my son. They know he's different. They love him. He's a goofy, sweet, big-hearted child. And he's 14 and he acts like he's 10. So now students are coming up and they're saying, you guys aren't funny. You need to knock this off. So now you're going to have students retaliating against these other kids. We don't want that either because we don't want these kids to get in trouble. Something has to be done with what is going on in the school district. I put out on Facebook to have people send letters, notes, call, and I have had, my phone is blown up. I have had story after story about in this school district and mainly in Torrington, the bullying that's went on with people, and no one does anything for any of these kids. People move their kids. People have moved their kids into this district. Nothing gets done. I'm sorry, when my child walks into the doors of the school, I feel like they should feel safe. They should be able to walk through that school and do whatever they want and know that they're safe. He has learning disabilities, speech disabilities, and some other things. He has enough hurdles to conquer. Being safe and not being picked on should not be one of them. So I am asking that on your next month's meeting, you put agenda for bullying, and I can do some research. You guys can do some research and maybe we can come up with some solutions.
Thank you. Daniel Murphy.
Good evening. I first want to start with presenting the board with a petition to remove the face covering mandate in Goshen County School District Number 1. Whereas on September 2nd, 2021, over 250 residents attended the Goshen County School District Board meeting in opposition to a mask mandate. The school board voted 5-4 to approve the face covering mandate that includes staff, students, and visitors. And whereas a face covering is being used to prevent transmission of a communicable disease, therefore is being used as a medical device. And whereas Article 1, Section 38 of the Wyoming Constitution, right of healthcare access, protects our God-given right to make healthcare decisions for ourselves and for our children. It states each competent adult shall have the right to make his or her own healthcare decisions the parent, guardian, or legal representative of any other natural person shall have the right to make healthcare decisions for that person. And whereas Wyoming State Statute 14-2-206, protection of parental rights, states the liberty of a parent to the care, custody, and control of their child is a fundamental right that resides first in the parent. And whereas Wyoming State Statute 35-1-310, limitation on orders, states that nothing in this chapter shall be construed to limit a parent or guardian's right to the care and custody and control of a minor child under the care of the parent or guardian. And whereas there have been 0 pediatric COVID-19 related deaths in Wyoming, and whereas COVID-19 vaccination is available to residents 16 and older and is soon to be released for children above the age of 5, and whereas natural immunity and antibodies are known to exist in much of the population. Now therefore be it resolved that the Goshen County School District #1 Board of Trustees should remove the unlawful face covering mandate, and be it further resolved that the undersigned of the attached signature pages request that the Goshen County School District #1 Board of Trustees take immediate action to recognize and protect parental and individual rights. There are 376 signatures in this. I would also like to read the oath that you took when you were elected to the school board. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming, that I have not knowingly violated any law related to my election or appointment or caused it to be done by others, and that I will discharge my duties of my office with fidelity. Knowing that you took an oath to uphold the Constitution, I would like to remind you that your face covering mandate violates Article 1, Section 38 of the Wyoming State Constitution. Face coverings are being used to prevent transmission of a communicable disease. Therefore, they are being considered a medical device. In the professional governance standards of the Wyoming school boards, there are several topics that I'd like to mention. An individual trustee acts with dignity and understands the implications of demeanor and behavior. The board operates openly with trust and dignity, governs in a dignified and professional manner, treating everyone with civility and respect, connects with the community. The superintendent acts with dignity, treats everyone with civility and respect, and understands the implication of demeanor and behavior, communicates openly with trust and integrity. Board's responsibilities involve the community, parents, students, and staff in developing a common vision, mission, and expectations for the district focused on learning and achievement and responsive to the needs of all students. Adopts, evaluates, and updates policies consistent with the law and the district's vision, mission, and expectations. The code of ethics. You are to base your personal decisions upon all available facts in each situation, to vote your honest conviction in every case, unswayed by partisan bias of any kind. To resist every temptation and outside pressure to use your position as a school board member to benefit yourself or any other individual or agency apart from the total interests of the school district. Your code of conduct. You shall avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety which could result from your position, and should not use the board membership for personal gain or publicity. You shall support an atmosphere of mutual respect, recognizing that all students, staff, parents, and community members take their lead from the beliefs, values, and behaviors of the Board of Trustees. You shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion to fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board. You will work cooperatively with other board members, staff, parents, and community members. You will make decisions to uphold the rights and welfare of all students. You will strive to understand the policies and procedures of the district and the state and federal laws and regulations that guide them. I have more, but that's it. Can I give the floor?
Posted.
Good evening. So I just want to start by saying that I had emailed Superintendent Kramer yesterday in regards to a conflict that my husband and I have with assigning the religious exempt waiver that you guys have provided to us. My son is on a 504 plan and he needs to be in the class and up front. And there was a few conflicts that I had with your form. So I asked for insight and advice and whatever else, and I haven't heard back yet. So those are the two documents you have in front of you to begin with. Two religious waivers, one from the Goshen County School District and one from the Wyoming Department of Health. The things on there, some of them on there are kind of unsettling, so that's what I want to bring to attention tonight. According to the required form and the only acceptable form by the Goshen County School District, you're requiring that we provide you with a reason as why masks are going against our beliefs, as well as the knowledge to our church and the denomination that we are part of by requiring our religious leader to sign off on it. The Wyoming Department of Health, if you look at their sheet, does not require that information that you guys are requesting. So I ask, on what authority do you have to ask this from us? Also attached, if you look at the last document I gave to you, it is a copy of a case from 2001 from the Wyoming Supreme Court that confirms that the state, the school district, has no right to inquire into the sincerity of our religious beliefs regarding the exemption from immunizations. So I don't really see how that principle would foresee this mask mandate. It applies all the same. Moving on, further down on your form, the first bullet says, quote, if this request is approved, it is my responsibility to complete the social distancing plan with my child's principal, end quote. What I just read to you is stating that you will be separating, distancing, and discriminating my child for his religious or her religious beliefs. On the bottom of the Goshen County School District homepage, there is a non-discrimination statement. Quote, Goshen County School District number 1 does not discriminate on the basis of a protected class, including, but not limited to, age, sex, race, religion, national origin, or disability in the programs or activity which it operates, or the employment therein, or admission thereto. The school strictly adheres to non-discrimination and anti-harassment laws and does not tolerate acts of harassment. See District Policy 4300/5100 for more information. End quote. By performing and allowing this form of segregation and mistreatment to take place, the school district's non-discrimination statement proves to be non-applicable when it comes to students and staff that have obtained an approved exemption regarding their religion. This is a form of religious discrimination. So I know that these are tough decisions that you guys all have to make, and your job is not easy. Ironically, my middle schooler, who is enrolled in this district still, he is currently being taught the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, which I'm guessing was approved by you guys to continue to teach in school, but yet you refuse to acknowledge our rights here and now. Thank you.
Jackie Sandlin.
Good evening. Appreciate the chance for us to speak tonight. It is with the hope that you will have ears to hear as people are speaking. At the September meeting at THS, it was visible that some of you had already determined your vote at the beginning, irregardless of what was presented through the night, whether facts, data, real science, law, body language speaks loud. 6 hours or 3 hours worth of that, those positions. as elected officials to represent the public, and as this public then and now is parents and guardians of students. In this district, you have overridden their will, their lawful oversight of their students, their property, lawful property. Senator Steinmetz read you the laws, as did Danielle tonight. This left you with no standing by law to instigate your mandate. No county health order was declared. No state health order had been mandated. You have opened our school district to being sued over injured students from these masks. And they have been injured with breathing issues, dermatological issues, all sorts of issues. Staph infections down in their lungs. I mean, that's dangerous. Stating further, as I told a fellow staff member when I worked here, there's a Bible verse that kept going through my mind. I would not have you ignorant, brethren. It kept going through my mind, and last February, March, this was happening, so I started searching for information. The following is one subject that I would be accountable for before my father died if I did not impart it to you. If you are in the future considering another step in mandates concerning that shot, this would present another unlawful act for you. The specific shots offered in this country are not approved and technically cannot be approved because of their ingredients and the experimental time they have not had it. The only one that's been approved has been sent over to, it was one for Israel. It's not here. None of them have been approved. And that is on FDA site, FDA site. Our people are the experiment. We are the experiment for this drug. And it's not going to end until 2023. With that being said, not only our Wyoming law is in fact against this, as read by Senator Steinmetz and now by Danielle, but the Nuremberg Code, which will come into effect. This disallows force, coercion, threat, retaliation, and a bunch of other stuff. It has to be informed consent. And that with that, you have to know what is in that specific shot. And I even have a list of it right here. If anybody's really interested, it's a list of poisons. And to be understood, to violate that code is deemed crimes against humanity to each person involved. And there is no excuse being allowed for just following orders. I would encourage you to read the Nuremberg trials to understand the seriousness of what happened to all those people who got involved in that, on that subject. The incentive to push shots in some districts around this country has been in the millions of dollars incentives from these shot pushers, the makers of this. They want the money, but they're doling it out in order to get it pushed through. And then I would hope the integrity of our district would be to not join in. The well-being of our students and staff is not that cheap. I have worked in this district for off and on for 20 years. Where I worked at Lingle, those were my kids. I took care of them. These schools here, all of them became my people. I served them the best I could, and I will fight for them. Thank you.
Marie Flanagan.
It just so happens on your agenda that you guys are going to be talking about leadership and self-something. Self-guidance or self-awareness or self-something. Anyways. Leadership comes in all forms. It comes in all fashions, and it doesn't always come from the top. Leadership is earned. If you have a weak link, leadership must recognize and establish a problem for it to be fixed. This is a quality that Goshen County School District is lacking from the top down. Here's just a few examples. I have documentation of board members who voted for students and staff to wear a medical device, yet these same board members who have been documented without a medical device attached to their face in a public setting. We have documentation of students being bullied and nothing done about it when we clearly have a zero tolerance policy. Yet you claim, remember that work session where you claim safety inside the four walls? Safety inside the four walls, you claim that, but not in all cases. We have staff terrified to stand up for themselves. This shows with THS and the 10 new staff members. Have you added up how many new staff members in the last 3 years? But you'd be really astonished. Might want to figure out why. We all have most of us have a pretty good clue. Hope you guys can figure it out too. Is there a bigger problem you are unaware of? A leader would find out what is going on and fix it. Why is the superintendent driving for the bus garage? Is there a morale issue? Or is no one interested in driving our children? Why? Obviously, our board members have some tough soul searching to do to take on leadership and doing what needs to be done. Our county can become more than anyone ever imagined, but it takes setting aside your pride and your friendships, rolling up your sleeves and asking successful and close districts or charter schools how to create greatness in our staff and our students. And if you think that we have greatness, you are so lying to yourself. After all my family has endured, are you willing to look me in the eyes, Marie Flanagan, and tell me you're ready to change Goshen County? Are you? Are you ready to put the label aside and ask for help? Because my friends right here, and many across this district have a vested interest, as many of you do. I totally believe that. But we have a vested interest in getting our boots dirty to help our kids succeed. Or are you willing to sit on the sidelines and watch it happen? While you're answering some of these questions, can you also please find out why we're still a week after I turned in my mask exemption for my daughter? 7 days, actually 8 days. Today would be 8. Please find out, because that's unacceptable. And she will not be wearing a mask. You're on notice. The choice is yours. You can either join us collectively in an effort to change Goshen County, or you can sit by and watch us work at creating the best school district in this state. Now, just one more question, since I do have a little bit extra time. I created a spreadsheet of my own, not on the computer, and I tracked how many students and staff members contracted COVID, were in quarantine, or active cases. I would like you to find out why your website dashboard does not match up with what is being sent in our emails. I don't understand. So I can be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong, but I would like to know why.
I would like to know why we have such low cases and high quarantine. I would like to know the differences. We need to understand. To work together, we need to learn, okay? And we are willing to work with you, so please let us.
Linda Meyer.
Good evening, school board trustees and Superintendent Mr. Trainer. I'm Linda Meyer. I did serve on the school board for one term. Well, we won't talk about how long ago it was. I have a senior daughter in Lingle Fort Laramie High School, and I'm here this evening to share her story of how overreaching policies end up disenfranchising the very students that you care so much about. My daughter's volleyball coach, who faithfully wears her mask and is vaccinated, came down with COVID recently. She's doing well, which is extremely important, and want her to be well. Due to the quarantine policy, the volleyball players were sent home. However, and this is not against the other students, those ladies, the vaccinated volleyball players were able to stay in school and go to practice. I hope you already see the problem here, that the coach who is vaccinated was able to get and spread COVID. This is not new information, and we all know that this can happen, right? But the coach who can get and spread it, I mean, the students that were back, okay, let me get back to this. If the coach can get it and spread it, why is it that the vaccinated girls get to stay when obviously they can get it and spread it? My daughter missed 7 days of school, practiced, and a tournament on the weekend. This is due to overreaching policies that do more harm than good. The next horrible inconsistency is about the antibodies. The students who had tested positive in the last 90 days were able to stay in school and go to practice. Why? Because they had antibodies. Another parent whose daughter was quarantined worked with Mr. Gilchrist and the health official to find out if our daughters could test for antibodies and the school would accept it. They discovered the answer is no. My daughter had to stay home while the other students went to school and to practice. Why is it that one student's antibodies are accepted, but another student's are not? Overreaching policies are inconsistent. She cannot go get those days back and her time at the tournament. My daughter never had symptoms and never got sick. The days she missed has affected her volleyball. I'm thankful that it hasn't as much affected her schooling. She was able to keep up. But this happened because of inconsistent, poor, and overreaching policies that do more harm than good. You may point to the numbers that indicate that you have done well, but these numbers are not conclusive. It's a false sense of security. I served for 4 years on the school board, and I want to thank you for giving the time and energy it takes to ensure our children's education. I believe then, and I do now, that trusting an overreaching mandate to save the kids has a bad side effect. We no longer are coming together to empower our kids to learn how to care for themselves. We are not coming together as a community. In fact, you know, it is the opposite. It also pushes parents nearly completely out of the picture. I am hoping that is not your intention. I am asking you to have courage over fear. We are smart, caring, intelligent, engaged parents who will do better when you acknowledge and support how we as parents care for our children. Please remove the masks and the quarantine, bring our community together and our children back in school. Thank you. 。
Rebecca Cochran.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Miller, the correct pronunciation for my name is Cohorn. I have spoken to the last 3 meetings. I have corrected you the last 3 times. Tonight, I would like to talk about my daughter, Ruby. Ruby is 6 years old. She has Down syndrome. She operates at about a 4-year-old level. When she aged out of Head Start, I came to Mr. Kramer and I said, well, I would like the school to put together a program. I don't know what you're going to call it. I don't know where you're going to put it. And I don't know how you're going to staff it or what curriculum you're going to teach. But my daughter is getting kicked out of Head Start and she has to go somewhere. She has to go to public school. She does not know the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, red, yellow, blue, green, stars, circles, squares, and they don't mean anything to her. She has no use for them. So they started this wonderful program of transition kindergarten. I really had nothing to do with it. I just requested it. It had already been in the works. When I came back to Mr. Kramer, says, what do I need to do? What information do I need to gather to put in front of your board in order to get this approved? He says, done deal. You're good to go. So did my daughter get to go to this program? No, she did not. Because we live in Lingle and the program is in Torrington. We did get to go to LFL. We had a wonderful para. Mr. Cody was absolutely wonderful. Couldn't have asked for a better. He did an amazing job. Today, Ruby is in 1st grade. She does not know ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, red, yellow, blue, green, or circles and squares. And that's okay. They're just going to keep passing her. They're just going to keep passing her. You know the best part of Ruby's day? She gets to ride the bus. Every day is Christmas when that bus comes for her. They kicked her off the bus. Why? Because she couldn't put a mask on. She doesn't have the cartilage in her ears to hold the mask up. So they have to put a plastic thing across the back of her head to hold it strapped to her face. The other reason? She can't put a seatbelt on. No, this motion, putting a seatbelt on, is not a life skill we need to teach a child. And we're going to teach leadership, but not by appointing someone to say, hey, Ruby, let's put your seatbelt on. Let me help you with that. You have signs up all over saying, if nothing else, be kind. But we can't get anybody to sit with Ruby. Because the most egregious thing that she does, she falls asleep on the bus. A person sitting with her, talking to her, playing with her for 4 miles. 4 miles from my house to the school. Can't be done. It's a liability issue. Liability. To be kind. To teach responsibility to younger people. Now, board members, you were presented with a graph on the back of that paper, a color graph. I did not get to see it. It looked to me like your transition program is doing fantastic, and I am glad for you. It is too late for my daughter. It's too late. But I would like to know, are you going to expand that program so other children can benefit? Because when I came, I wanted other students. These kids that are out here on farms and ranches and their parents can't bring them to preschool and kindergarten, it's too far. I'd have to sit in town all day. Been there, done that. Are you going to expand that to other schools so other children can benefit? Because that was part of the promise, Mr. Kramer. I remember. Other children need these benefits. And there's no reason not to have them. Now, as for my daughter riding the bus, you send a vehicle out. Bus goes right by my house, but you send a separate vehicle out 5 minutes before 8 o'clock, which means by the time we get back to school, it's now 8 o'clock. But she has to have breakfast. So she's missing her educational time every day.
so she can be in a private vehicle. Good decision making there. Are we making sure that she succeeds here by taking time out of her day? I don't think so. How hard is it to put a seatbelt on a child? How hard is it to say, Ruby, pull your mask up? Because I went to North Platte Physical Therapy, the people who have been treating my child since she was out of the hospital. And she says, what are you talking about? If you tell Ruby to pull her mask up, she doesn't. So I really don't think you have very much authority. I don't think that's a very good reason. But you do you, because you know.
Belinda Alexander.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Linda Alexander. I'm a cook at Trail Elementary. I have a chronic cough that I've had for more than 7 years, and the mask mandate that was voted into place by the school board on September 2nd forced me to request a letter from my doctor who is treating me for the cough. And he wrote a letter to the school district stating that as I am currently receiving medical care through his clinic for a variety of health concerns, including chronic cough, chronic lung inflammation, and allergies, and my condition is exacerbated by wearing a mask for even a short duration, it is medically advisable that I be exempted from all mask wearing requirements. This letter was postmarked September 13th, 2021. And after the district received the letter, I was told that I had to fill out their mask exemption form. There isn't a place on the form for employee names, so I crossed out the student name and put employee in place of student. I faxed the form to my doctor on September 15th, 2021. He completed it, signed it, and faxed it to the district on September 16th. I haven't heard anything since, except that my boss, Patty Essert, has given it to Mr. Kramer. I would like to know what is going on with it. Thank you.
Thanks to all those who spoke this evening. The board, the trustees prefer to move into our agenda or to recess for a matter of 5 minutes. What's that? Let's keep going. Okay. We'll keep going. All right. We'll move on to item E, recommended actions to the consent agenda. Are there any items that a trustee wishes to have pulled from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to item 2, new business. first item of business under is item A, accept resignations submitted by district staff members. It can be found on page 55. It's recommended to accept the resignation submitted by Torrington Middle School science teacher Matt Gordon, effective Friday, October 22nd, 2021, and the resignation of Torrington High School principal Chase Christensen, effective June 30, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? One of you is a second. All right. Is it all right if we put Mac as the move and Ms. Wellington as second? Okay, all in favor? Sorry, any discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Consider the approval. Item B is consider approval of offering a teaching contract for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year. This information can be found on page 57 of your agenda. The recommendation is to approve offering a teaching contract to Joe Wilson as a science teacher at Torrington Middle School for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been, we have a first, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
So when are we saying that he's going to start?
Mr. Wilson is actually is currently scheduled to start on October 18th. That way he can work with the staff member, Mr. Gordon, and get a feel for the classroom and get an idea of where he will be at, and then also work with other staff in the collegial group to make sure he's on first step to be ready to take over the classroom when Mr. Gordon resigns on October 22nd.
So it appears that he's presently employed and he's starting on the 18th. So
That's correct.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving offering a teaching contract to Joe Wilson as a science teacher at Torrington Middle School for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item C, consider approval of renumbering district policy 4151, leave granted by the superintendent to district policy 4325. The recommendation is to approve renumbering district policy 4151 to 4325, leave granted by the superintendent as the policy applies to all district staff. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D, consider approval of new job description for the Director of Human Resources and Public Relations as presented and job posting. It's recommended to approve the new job description as presented and posting of a full-time Director of Human Resources and Public Relations position. Is there a motion?
So.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is there a timeline on the posting and hiring of this position?
So as soon as it would be approved, we would try then to post as soon as possible, then get together a committee. We're establishing the goals and questions, and then as soon as we felt we had a proper pool of applicants, we would start with that process of interviewing any applicants that would apply for the job.
And this is a full-time position.
That is correct. The human resource piece that we talked about was a partial, as we talked about, and then in the explanation, and then also some of the information that was shared. The other deemed of importance in relation to the public relations piece and the communication as it becomes an integral part of the district and a need for a coordinated effort in order to make sure that we're kind of reviewing our current practices in our communication plan, and in order to kind of make sure that we can keep that going as much as possible.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the new job description as presented and posting of a full-time director of human resources and public relations position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item E is to consider approval of proposed Goshen County School District COVID-19 quarantine protocols. It's recommended to approve the proposed COVID-19 quarantine protocol as presented on page 63 of your agenda. Is there a motion? For a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I would like to make an amendment to that document on the third paragraph down that starts with the Goshen County School District school level. I would like that to end, and it can be reworded if we'd like, to word in an instance where the current mask mandate is redacted, the quarantine policy would apply for all transmission levels.
Trustee Schmidt, can you repeat that wording just so I have it right and make sure both Lorraine and I have the exact statement?
Again, paragraph 3, the one that starts with the Goshen County School District, school level post-contact quarantine protocol, that would end with, in an instance where the current mask mandate is redacted, this quarantine policy would apply for all levels. Just a little background, currently it only would apply to dark green, light green, and yellow. This way we would have consistency through all transmission zones if we were to pull that mask mandate out.
Thank you for restating that.
I was involved in the creation of this document with my fellow trustees, Mr. Fishman and Mr. Sussex. I just think it's important to point out that this policy is very much in line with the Utah Department of Health, the options that they give their schools and local health officials in order to present parents, as we've heard through various forms now, the option to return children to school versus having them quarantine at home if they're exposed due to a close contact. So I believe that this does give the parents those options in order to address that quarantine in a number of different ways, and I appreciate the work that has been done on this. Any further discussion?
So again, I think we've had a conversation regarding some of those changes. Do I need to point some of those out currently?
Yes, trustee Salcedo, I think that would be a good idea to point those items out so we have monitoring. Thanks, Mr. Trustee.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to read that real quick. So you know,
Sorry, our superintendent will have to be excused for a time period. We'll continue with our meeting, but I will take note of the proposed changes that you, or the changes that you request to the document, trustee Salcedo.
Okay, some of these are just, I guess, wording under option 1. It has identified the daily symptoms screening 1 time per day in the morning with school staff. The wording should also be similar to under option 2, where it's 0.5, you have certified in the second option, but you don't have certified under the first. So just keeping it consistent, I think certified should be in both of those options. That's the first. I also thought that something should be mentioned specifically regarding the vaccinated students and how they're going to be responsible if they were in contact with somebody who tested positive. So just making sure that they're mentioned and how that was going to actually be followed up with. Under option 2, close contact not showing signs or symptoms completes a COVID-19 PCR test. I think that it should be stated as to who's going to be financially responsible for paying for that. And clarifying who's going to be actually responsible for that cost. And then I believe lastly, under, let's see, it's after option 4, the first paragraph, the subpoint on documentation is shared with the school that indicates a positive PCR test. I think that we discussed that it could be either a quick test or one that is that correct?
Yeah, just a PCR test is what the option.
And then lastly, I just had a question of who is going to be tracking and monitoring all students who are considered close contacts. And do you?
So Mr. Kramer explained that this will require, so the state of Wyoming's Department of Health does have funds available for somebody to assist with contact tracing within schools. And so he would apply for those funds and potentially hire somebody part-time in order to do this. He anticipates it take about 2 weeks in order to enact this policy as an option for parents for those students who are close contacts.
And then lastly, under that same point, the protocol will be evaluated in the number, if the number of positive cases due to close contacts in school increases over a 1-week period. What is that? What is that number? What's that number going to? What's the goal for that? Once it hits, and again, I was talking about either a percentage or is it a number? And I guess that's a point of discussion that needs to be had.
Yes, I apologize. I'm going to look for a quick email. In the same document from the Utah Department of Health, I sent this a piece of this to Mr. Kramer earlier, so I apologize. So related to outbreaks in schools, the Utah Department of Health considers schools with 1,500 or fewer students, so all schools within Goshen County School District, to have a threshold of 30 students who test positive is what their guideline is to be considered an outbreak.
So 30?
That's from there. That's up for discussion. I just brought that as an informational point that is from the same document from the Utah Department of Health is.
Exactly. You don't know the numbers, the school system that charge.
Elementary procedure, so would it feel like my
Sure.
I was wondering if this has been posted anywhere on the website or passed out for the public to review this. I think that you're probably trying to do something very good, and so at least that is my hope. But I know we as the legislature, under the Administrative Procedures Act, have to have things out so people succeed, and none of us have been able to find a hyperlink. Maybe there was one that we missed it somehow, but I would request that maybe you consider
talking about, because this is, as we know, a very sensitive issue. And I appreciate that you guys are working on it, I really do. But I think that in order for everyone here to understand what's happening to their students, it might be prudent.
Mr. Fritzler, did you distribute this as requested earlier at the entry? This was not available with the agenda. Okay, I apologize. It was my request earlier that it was present with the addendum as you all walked in this evening. Yes, we can. Can we get 30 copies? Thank you. So as this discussion continues, I think that there is some questions of, again, we were using a guideline in order to draft this policy off an entity who had more clear guidelines than the state of Wyoming has published. Is the rationale there? Trustee Sussex?
I'm just going to add to what Mr. Miller said. The rationale behind this is the state of Wyoming, their quarantine protocol has kind of left us swinging in the wind, so to speak, and they are straddling the fence on where they're at. So this is not a blanket quarantine protocol. This is more selective, and it gives the parents the option to make a choice in regards to the quarantine of their students, which is honestly what we're shooting for. Is parent choice. And so that's kind of where we're at with this right now. This is a step. And obviously, you know, it's not perfect. Either way, I think we're going to have some, I mean, people are going to disagree, and we disagree on how it should be drafted. But I do believe that it's a step in the right direction. And I do believe that in the event that the mask mandate would be lifted, instead of having 700 students quarantined, it at least gives us a bit of control over that.
So as those copies will be distributed, I just want to answer one question that we had earlier with Trustee Saucedo. He had some questions related to vaccinated students. They would follow the same protocol. So there will just be a bullet point added to the document that will be distributed that as similar to the discussion out here today, that they would have to require the same exact quarantine protocols essentially. So either return to school mask, et cetera. And once you have the document, I do apologize. It'll make a lot more sense to you to be able to read through that. So hearing that, would we be in favor of tabling this to come back to it at the end of our agenda after we continue with the other business items while we're getting copies? Okay. So is there a motion to table until to move this item to the end of our agenda?
So move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion will be, or this item of business will be tabled until the end of our agenda today. Item F is to approve the purchase of state license for Celequity online program for Southeast schools. There's a recommendation to approve the purchase of Celequity online SEL program and site license for Southeast schools from 7 Mindsets Academy LLC, in the total amount of $12,000 funded through ESSER and CARES. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is there anybody that can give us a little bit of, I guess, background on Celequity?
Mr. Williams is joining us via Zoom. Mr. Williams, would you be able to provide the trustees with an update in regards to the implementation in Southeast schools for this program? Mr. Epler, I don't want to put you on the spot, and I know Mr. Williams has been heavily involved in this as opposed to your involvement. I don't want you to speak to anything that you're not comfortable to, because I can speak to some of it also if needed.
And I would just say that, not sure if Mr. Williams, familiar with another district that utilize this resource, but he and our counselor, Mrs. Fogel, have researched this as a potential, in order for us to best implement SEL secondary level, this is the step.
I know Mr. Williams and Mrs. Fogel have done a lot of work with this, also in small groups, and worked significantly with the implementation on the small group level. This would be on the school-wide level. They're very excited about the opportunity. I had an opportunity to sit in on a presentation of this, and it's an excellent program. It creates a framework for the staff to kind of follow. It does set up some things in regards to successes and building upon those. I think it fits a lot of what Mrs. Fogel has wanted to do in the counseling realm and fits very nicely. They have also outlined an implementation plan because of, as you can see, the significant cost to this. There was one of the pieces in their implementation plan that I did ask them to address in the sustainability if funding was now not present in future years. And they were able to identify ways that they would sustain those same ideals and same thought processes throughout the program if funding was not available past this point.
Do we know, is it a K through 12 program? And is
It
it?
is a K-12 program. We implemented at the secondary level during flex time on Mondays. So it'll be weekly, 30 minutes with the mantra mindset Monday. Needs to help so that body delivered as you heard earlier. Lori talked about either via the counselor broadly to each classroom. The structure we've been using to this point with other resources is that individual teachers are delivering that to small groups, but K-12 program. Largely facilitated with secondary.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the purchase of Selectity online SEL program and site license for Southeast Schools from Seven Mindsets Academy LLC in the total amount of $12,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item G is to consider approval of contracting with Quadient Leasing for the acquisition of a new district postage machine. It's recommended to approve contracting with Quadient Leasing for the acquisition of a new district postage machine in the total amount of $17,953.20 from the general fund. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Just my agenda preparation meeting with Mr. Kramer, it was identified that this is a savings for the district over our previous mailing machine.
I'll let Ms. Keats speak to the exact savings, the exact number there, but that is correct.
Our existing postage machine did lease out, and we kept it for a couple of additional years just because of maintaining the cost. This postage machine is priced with like a $2 or $3 a month or quarter savings. So what they did was were being able to maintain the existing lease payment that we currently have by a couple of dollars reduction.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving approval of contracting with Quadient Leasing for the acquisition of a new district postage machine in the total amount of $17,953.20 from the general fund, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Item H is consider approval of contracting with Phil Turf / Renner Sports for the district tennis court concrete overlay project. It's recommended to approve contracting with Phil Turf Renner Sports for the post-tension concrete overlay of 3 district tennis courts in a total amount of $281,998 funded through major maintenance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I couldn't begin the conversation. I did meet with Mr. Kramer in the building committee, and we talked through this project. This is the tennis courts right over here. 2 of those courts have been redone. 3 of them are in a position where they need redone or condemned. The courts are such a condition that we did do a very minor patching just to allow the tennis season to happen this year. But this option does come in and applies the post-tension concrete, which is what we have on the other 2 courts. It's an overlayment, and in evaluating the cost, it's very comparable to what was paid about 6 to 7 years ago when the 2 courts were reconstructed.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cates, could you tell us, and I know there's a lot of variables, but what's the estimated lifespan of this overlay?
The estimated lifespan of a post-tension court is 30 years.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving contracting with Phil Turf Renner Sports for the post-tension concrete overlay of 3 district tennis courts in a total amount of $281,998 funded through major maintenance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions if there are any? Motion carries. Item I is consider approval of contracting for concrete flooring in southeast storage facility. It's recommended. So get the information from Ms. Gates.
And we do have a memo. We met with a couple of concrete vendors. One written quote that we received was for $5,500. That's from Valley Construction. We received a verbal quote that was higher than that, but not a written quote. So my recommendation is to contract with Valley Construction in the amount of $5,500.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of contracting with Platte Valley Construction in the amount of $5,500 for concrete flooring in southeast storage facility, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions if there are any? Motion carries. Okay, we'll revisit item E that was previously tabled. The motion on this was to approve this policy. And again, I do apologize that this was not distributed at the beginning of the meeting for those in attendance this evening. Just to answer a few of the questions related, we already talked about the vaccination status, and then there is the recommendation to add a few pieces of verbiage to clarify the policy. Is there any additional discussion on said policy?
Are we voting to add that sentence in there? Is this the vote on the amendment or vote on actual policy?
I think we would need to vote to amend the policy.
This is where we talked about if there would be consensus in relation to any changes that would result in changes to the vote, then it would be needed to make a motion and vote upon it. It's considered editorial changes that could be made without the change of anyone's vote. Then we could just go with editorial pieces. So that would be up to Trustee Miller if you deem that that would be a significant change that would result in a need for that new vote.
So it'd have to be changed the motion, correct?
Correct.
The original
Yep,
motion, a
they
second. Okay.
One thing, if I may, also, one, for those people that were part of the committee, I did share Dr. Harris' email because I did send her this to just let her know of our discussion that we were having this evening. One point that she did bring up that has not been discussed that I do think we need to address is overnight travel for individuals who would be under the school level close contact, as to how we would handle those situations, as to whether we would say, yes, you can travel with the same stipulations that you would at school. No, you can, or yes, you can travel, but we will provide you your own room. So there isn't the idea of the mask piece, because obviously that's not a 24-hour ability to do, or no, we would not allow you to travel. Those really are probably three pieces, but I think that's an important piece to know and think about, and to have a plan moving forward in relation to that question.
I don't know. Somebody, maybe I'm just reading it, my brain is not processing it right, but can somebody explain the paragraph just where it talks about when it goes in place? And I see it says from dark green to yellow, it's in place, and it's also in place when we move from the red to the orange. So basically it goes into place unless we're in the red. So it's in place at all times unless we're in the red.
So that is the way it's currently written. Also, Trustee Schmick had requested that we add a sentence at the end of it that says, in an instance where current mask mandate is redacted, this policy will be in place at all levels. So the rationale behind this policy, just again, would be the current Wyoming Department of Health's policy is any close contact, vaccinated, sitting in the center of students, all of the close contacts become quarantined. That's what caused the high number of quarantines at the beginning of the school year. This provides for options for those close contacts that occurred during the school hours in school close contacts, and thereby giving options for those children or students to remain in class, either wearing a mask and testing, or quarantining at home as per the State Department of Health's guidelines. So.
Trustee Miller, I want to point out one thing, just I think maybe to answer your question also, and why orange is not listed there. So in the discussion in the committee, there was discussion about where we're moving up. It seems to go very rapidly from step to step, from green to yellow to orange to red. Where moving up, we would be in an orange area, that this would not be in effect. We would be under the Wyoming Department of Health. But on that return, if we are in red and we were returning to orange, then that would be where we would implement the close contact protocol.
So it's in effect in orange if we're moving down. If we're moving up to orange, it's not in effect.
That is correct.
Yeah, that would. What are we in right now?
We are currently in red.
So if we stay in red and we adopt this protocol, we don't have a protocol for red.
As that draft is written right now, that is correct.
The continuous masking policy does the same thing that this does. So in the event that masks, that the masking policy of the district is redacted, this would then be in place today, if that were the case in the future. to prevent the need for a similar mandate in the future would be the hope. So I'll go over if it's okay with the trustees. I'll just run through. The first change is under that paragraph. In an instance where current mask mandate is redacted, this policy is effective at all levels. The second change would be under option 1, bullet point 3, insert the word certified between school and staff. Option 2, insert at student/parent expense. And then a bullet point that this policy also applies to vaccinated students. The only question we have not answered is Mr. Kramer's about how would we handle overnight travel.
My vote is that remain consistent throughout.
Just be consistent. Okay. So hearing those changes, is there any further discussion? Trustees,
Mr. Chairman, I also, to make a point of clarifying that the expense of the PCR test in option 2 is going to be due to, I mean, it was going to fall on the family.
Correct. At parent or student expenses. The verb, they're the words that I used. Any further discussion?
Just a point. Okay, so what are the options for families that are not going to be able to afford that PCR test? Is there, you said they can go get the free one, and that would fall into the category of the PCR test?
So correct. Currently, the state of Wyoming does provide their PCR test at the state is at no charge from the state. Any further discussion? Does the changes made, do they affect your motion to approve? Or to the second?
Seems editorial to me.
Okay. All right, so hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the policy, or sorry, the protocol as presented this evening with the editorial changes listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And then we will move on to topics for discussion by board members. The first topic here is discussion of our leadership, governance and board self-evaluation discussion that was held in our work session earlier this month and potential next steps. Do you have further information, Mr. Kramer?
No, just that, reiterating that email that I sent out following the work session. If you had a chance to review those items. The key there is that a board working together with specific goals outlined and a structure for moving those forward are going to be the most successful schools that we can have and school boards in general. So it is imperative, in my opinion, that we take a look at those and set up work session times to have Rod back to kind of lead us through that further discussion that helps us guide in those practices of setting those goals, setting how we measure those things. So there is a focused outcome and a focus that the board has in relation to school improvement and things that we are measuring regularly to make sure that we're on the right track.
Are there any thoughts related to that self-evaluation process or move from here?
The one, sorry. to interrupt. The only thing I would like to see, especially that I thought was really beneficial, was I think our schedule of visiting schools right now just isn't realistic. I think his thoughts on that were really good, and I think setting up that schedule where we can have multiple trustees visiting schools for meaningful events, having that set up with administrators in advance, that way it can just be more meaningful for everybody involved. I think getting that set up and the way you talk about it would be a good thing.
I agree.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I guess, instead of just having us drop in at a random time, the special events at the school, and I'm not saying that we don't need to be going to the schools during regular business hours and all that stuff, but I do think that if it's scheduled ahead of time that we're gonna, 2 trustees are gonna be there and administration knows about it, I would agree that I think it's more meaningful. And
related to the self-evaluation portion, maybe it would be best if we revisit the email and then at an upcoming meeting, discuss definitive next steps on that as well. Would that be amenable to members of the board?
Yes.
Okay. Another topic for discussion, the letter from Chairman Jesperson was dated October 7th. And so related to that letter being dated October 7th, it's statutorily required that we as a board appoint a new trustee to fill that vacated seat no later than the 6th of November. So therefore, we will need to open applications, and Ms. Fritzler is extremely adept at doing this. She has experience, so she'll get that published along with the requirements for that trustee. And so it's just important that the intended parties do meet the requirements as set forth by the state of Wyoming and the Constitution of the state of Wyoming. The applications will be due back to the district no later than, that is a question as to when we prefer to have the meeting. It does need to be held before the next regular board meeting, as our next regular board meeting falls outside of the 30-day window. So a couple of days that I had looked at were for our next meeting would be Tuesday, October 26th, or Tuesday, November 2nd. However, Tuesday, November 2nd is election day. And so we probably would want to stay away from that. Other days, of course, are open as well. Just sticking with Tuesdays, those are allow enough time to receive applications. Any thoughts?
I can do the 26th.
The 26th.
What everybody else is.
26th, it works for the majority of the board. I would suggest probably 6 o'clock.
Yeah. 6.
Okay. So 6 o'clock on Tuesday, October 26th is when we will hold the meeting in which the agenda will need to we'll call a meeting to order and then hold an executive session to interview the applicants, at which point, at the conclusion of that meeting, the applicant will be appointed to the board following the executive session. Therefore, applications, I would think we would want applications back no later than October 22nd, the Friday before at 5 p.m. so that we can review them over the weekend. Or on Friday.
So we didn't have an hour leeway there for anybody that would want to. 3 o'clock would be preferable.
3 o'clock.
Just to make sure they get it in time, that someone doesn't show up at 4:05 and miss anybody.
So 3 p.m., October 22nd will be the closing of applications for this vacated position. At 3 p.m., October 22nd. Thank you. That was, I think I made all the bullet points. Did I miss anything? Thank you. Any other topics for discussion this evening?
Mr. Chair, in the light of passing this new quarantine guideline, I would like to consider having a special meeting on the 28th. Have our work session to consider pulling the mask mandate that we passed on September 2nd.
The remaining members of the board wish to have a special meeting to consider that recommendation. Seeing a majority. Are there any concerns with that? October 28th was the
Sure. No,
recommendation.
I don't know if this conflicts with anybody. I do know that there is the Goshen County Economic Development Annual Meeting. The FAFSA night at EWC is that evening also. Just, I don't know if any conflicts exist with anybody, but I want to make sure and point that out just in case anybody would have those conflicts.
I would have the conflicts, but this is probably my priority. This would be my priority that evening. So is that the pleasure of the board to meet on October 28th to have that discussion? Is there anything, so from an agenda standpoint, there would be one topic to consider.
That would be correct. And then also as to whether public comment would be heard that evening, or if that would be, as we discussed, a different time, if that would be scheduled for a different evening to be heard, so it didn't get later. It's kind of at the behest of the board on which they feel would work the best in that situation relating to that agenda item.
I think if it's one item on the agenda, having the discussion that evening would be preferable. That way it's, we've already got a lot of meetings in October, so and not that I mind meeting again, but I'm just saying, I just think if it's one item on the agenda, we can certainly have public comment before it.
So is there any concern? I know that there had been some discussion amongst some of that I've had with some of you regarding a time frame for public forum to be, say, 90 minutes with 45 minutes on each side of the issue before taking a vote. Is that where you'd like, or should we continue with our current of 5 minutes?
Would this be just for this meeting?
Correct.
I would be fine with the 90 minutes for this meeting.
Is there any concern with that?
Just to clarify, Trustee Sussex, are you splitting it?
45 and 45 is what?
Okay. Okay.
So and just to make sure, and so everyone in public knows that they would be asked to identify their stance on the agenda item so that there would be a knowledge of how that balance would occur. Just so there would be an additional question relating to that sheet. So there would be that balance.
I'd like to add something little there. I've just seen it, you see on all sorts of news where you see a clip of school board meetings and when people talk. And I don't have to do it, but whoever's chairman, it does seem a little, you have to interrupt somebody when they go over the time limit. And sometimes it seems that's a hard position to be in. I didn't know if it'd be helpful for the chairman and the public to get a visual clock that the public can see. When it goes off, they know, hey, probably should quit.
So we had that at the last meeting at the high school, and I would recommend that we have that here as well. I struggled to, even this evening, trying to manage my stopwatch and listening to the speaker. And so I think that's a great recommendation, something we should probably have ongoing so that we can control that. Thank you. Okay, so we have meetings then scheduled on October 26th to appoint a new trustee and October 28th to consider redacting the current Goshen County School District masking policy. Is there a preference? 6, 7?
I would say if we're doing the 90-minute setting is probably, that way, if people do need to go up to college and get faster stuff done, they can. That should get us out of here.
That's at 7.
Oh, okay.
Also, 6 might actually work better. Okay. Okay. So 6 p.m. Is that agreeable to the members of the board?
The new trustee, so are they sworn in on the 26th also, or are we just appointing them?
So, Chairman, over a minute. They are, you approve their, what was the word for me, Lorraine? They're approving their appointments, but then the swearing in takes place at the next regular board meeting.
Or special meeting, so we could have
Or
it be at
special. It could be
2,
on Thursday too.
so we could swear them in
Yep.
at the next meeting.
Yep.
So that they be present on the 29th.
Correct. So it'd be a
Yeah,
9-person board.
they'd be sworn in, that'd be the first action immediately there, and they could be a part of that special meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that question.
That's probably the second, it should be a 2-item agenda then with that swearing in first and then the other item. Okay, any other discussion topics from the board? Okay, hearing none. Our future meetings then, we have the 2 that we just mentioned, salary relations. The fall meeting of salary relations will occur on October 20th from 3:30 to 7 p.m.
Lorraine, would you be able to remind the members of that, who are the members of that, so there's no confusion there? I know, so we had some kind of changes, I think, possibly. So you did notify, okay.
So Mr. Jesperson was on that committee. Is there another individual that is currently on the board that has a desire to serve on salary relations?
I was, Mark was actually, Mark was going to take my place, however, since he's.
No
So
longer.
I'm still on.
All right, so that's you and I. All right. And trustee Patrick. Perfect. All right, the next regular board meeting then will be held on November 9th at 7 p.m. And the WSB annual conference, for those who are interested in attending, is November 17th through 19th, held at the Casper Ramkota. With that, superintendent's report.
And share my screen. So the report that we have for this evening is the August-September average daily membership. And just runs down. So what we did here with these 2 colors is this far right is the spring. So that would be the April numbers where we were in LaGrange Elementary. So they are slightly down from where they were in the spring and slightly down from the year previous time. So you look at then LFL, this is the total, this is the high school. High school is up approximately 6 students, about approximately 9 students from the spring and 6 students from this time last year. Lingo Fort Laramie Elementary is up about 5 students from the spring and about 8 from the previous year. And then Lingo Fort Laramie Middle School. And you'll notice in Lingo Fort Laramie and Southeast, sometimes they are a product of the large classes, and even at THS and TMS, you'll notice our freshman class, district-wide, nationwide, is one of the largest classes. It's an anomaly across the nation, freshman class. And so when we had that move from 8th grade to 9th grade, you'll notice some differences there in attendance. So Lingo Fort Laramie Middle School, roughly the same as spring, a slight drop from last year. Lincoln Elementary, a drop from this spring of about 12 students and a drop of about 14 from the previous year. Southeast Elementary, very similar in numbers, slightly down on both occasions. Southeast High School, same situation, slightly down from both spring and from last year at this time. Southeast Junior High had an increase of about 8 students and an increase of about 7 from last year at this time. Trail Elementary, an increase of 3 from this spring, and then from last year, about 8. And then Torrington High School, because of that freshman class being significantly larger than that senior class, had a significant increase of about 22 students from last spring, and then from last year had about a 6 student increase. TMS had a significant decrease due to a small 6th grade and a large 8th grade class moving into freshmen. That number is significantly lower and also significantly lower than last year at this time. Overall in the district, from the spring, we're slightly down overall from last year. You can see that we're about 17 students down. Any questions on enrollment? One thing I want to just clarify on, and so everybody knows on the protocol, as it is right now, this would not go into effect tomorrow. I had an email almost immediately that, is this immediately going into effect? Because of where we're at in regards to the transmission indicators, it would not be in effect until we would go down to orange from red where we're currently at. And we will communicate that as we try to update that link on our website every Thursday morning, because the state comes out with their new indicators. Typically on Wednesday evening, it's not always, I guess, I don't know, Trustee Miller, if you found it to kind of vary slightly. It's not always a perfect science, but we try to create that new link as soon as we possibly can.
And we had the discussion while you were out that it'll take you approximately 2 weeks to get the staffing in place to administratively handle the policy as well.
Correct. And thank you for that. I will hold off on sharing why I step out, but I appreciate your understanding and stepping out.
Is there any other business to come before the board this evening? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned.